Earlier this week, the Star Citizen community was introduced to the Aegis Nautilus strategic mine layer, the first of its kind ship dedicated to the art of defensive, yet very explosive warfare. What's the player experience going to be like? What do minefields add to the overall Star Citizen experience? Why does it look the way that it does? We posed these questions and more to John and Paul ahead of its recent reveal. Let's find out what they had to say.
The Nautilus brings exciting gameplay to the Star Citizen universe because it's something very traditional for Chris Roberts style games. I think it just adds a lot of extra depth. Our combat gameplay is very offensive based at the moment, so it's a lot of players going out there, hunting down other players, killing other players and taking their stuff. Whereas there isn't a huge amount for the players that want to involve themselves in combat but not actually be that sort of either twitch shooter or strategic bomber. They just want to play the longer game, and the Nautilus is the perfect ship for that. So one of the key aspects for mine layers and minesweepers is maintaining their minefields. Minefields offer a great way to add defensive gameplay to Star Citizen. They allow players, whether they're in an org or solo players, to ring fence or protect a sort of strategic asset, whether that's a space station or even just entry methods to certain areas.
We get the design brief from John Crew and his team, and that gives us our basic spec of what we need to hit. Chris likes to keep it as open as possible in terms of influences for art, so we can just be free basically. Out of the three, the one that Chris chose and the one that was our favourite, it's got that sort of armoured feeling about it, but then it hits all the beats that we need it to hit. It's got the big S7 gun on it. It's got the silhouette change when all the mine launchers pop out. As a ship, from all angles, it looks really good. The other stuff was interesting, but this one was a clear favourite. When people see it, it's a relatively simple shape. It's essentially a triangle. Very Aegis. It's kind of it's like a tech sandwich. You've got the top and the bottom, which are simpler, and then you've got a slice of just heavy tech in the middle.
Aside from the mine laying side of the gameplay, there's the people on the other end of mines. It ties into the whole scanning and exploration side. So these mines are quite hard to detect. So obviously you wouldn't want them to be huge gleaming red beacons of light that are there. They sort of embed themselves into the world quite nicely, and ships that are designed for hunting things down, such as scanners, great, they can find them. If you want to go through a minefield, then the Nautilus itself can do some minesweeping with its drones, but then other ships equipped with EMP or distortion weapons can temporarily disable them, which helps give other combat ships a way through these areas. And then there's the whole supply chain side. So whilst the Nautilus is best placed to bring more mines and recover those mines, other ships will be able to sort of assist in that functionality as well.
From materials to liveries to weapon attachments and more, yes, it's time for another sprint report. The character, props, weapons, and graphics team recently worked together to sort through about 400 plus materials in a review designed not only to improve the overall quality and detail of elements used in everything from clothing to FPS weapons and more, but also to streamline things like diffuse textures and normal maps into a more systemic system that allows our artists greater freedom and creativity when creating new materials for player-used items in the verse. It's ongoing work involving higher fidelity scan data that, when complete, should bring an improved level of realism and depth to existing assets. Next up, the EU vehicle content team are exploring some livery options for the upcoming release of the Vanguard, Sentinel, and Harbinger. Now, what you're going to see here are not approved final paint jobs. I'm going to say that again just to be sure. They're not approved final paint jobs, but they are explorations currently taking place. You're going to see more of the two remaining Vanguards in the coming weeks. In other color explorations, the USPU Gameplay Features team recently completed a sprint exploring a variety of new improvements to the Mobi-Glass embedded chat system, including, as you can see here, the ability to assign specific chat colors to individual channels to help you always know which group you're speaking to. It's one of several improvements the team is making to the overall chat experience coming online in the near future. Of course, it's not all visuals this week, as the Weapons Features team has been working to bring additional attachments online to complement the scopes that were added in Alpha 3.6, like the suppressor for the LH-86 ballistic pistol from Gemini. Suppressors, scopes, underbarrel attachments, and more are just some of the ways the Weapon Features team are working to let players customize their FPS experience in the Star Citizen universe. And finally for this week, the audio team has been incorporating updates to the systemic Foley system that can alter the audio effects heard dynamically as your oxygen is depleted or your character continues to exert themselves. As well as detect the speed of a player character's bones when they fall and impact on a surface to create a more robust sound when you attempt to make that superhero landing on the surface of a planet or a moon. That sound makes my knees hurt. Star Citizen is more than just a virtual first-person universe. It's often a part of our daily lives. Now, whether that's attending a major event like CitizenCon, more intimate gatherings of backers at regional bar citizen events, or just sitting in our homes or offices working on an Aegis desk mat while wearing a Drake hoodie, the request for more swag is one of the most repeated refrains we hear when we meet our backers. And that's why available now are a new collection of Aegis-themed posters, shirts, and Goliath mousepads on the RSI store. They're the first offerings in a new merchandise initiative being developed here that you'll learn more about as we continue along the road to CitizenCon and beyond. Here's Will to share a little of his team's process when creating the recently revealed Aegis Goliath desk mat.
We've done large format mousepads in the past, but this time we wanted to make the most of that space that's there. It's a very wide format. We decided to try and fill it with as many beautiful Aegis ships as possible. The challenges of working with Aegis ships is that they're very grey and militaristic, and we want to make a mousepad that's very vibrant. So when composing the image, it makes sense to sort of get your big silhouettes in shape first. One of the things we do is go into the engine and make sure that we've got a very widescreen format to work with. And then it's sort of a case of, okay, what ship balances well against another one? And having something where there's weight throughout the image which is dispersed in a way that's pleasing to the eye. You can either do that through color and a silhouette or a bright light source, or one interesting shape that works graphically well with another. And the javelin was a key focal point in that image. So once we had the illustration in place, it was a case of trying to make this feel like an Aegis product. So as we developed the Aegis brand, we have little accents and things that fit with this. So it was then a case of integrating that over the top of the illustration to give you the final result. So we were pleased with the design that we actually sent off, but once we actually received the proof back and saw how vibrant the colours had come through in the final results, we were really pleased, and we hope the community's pleased as well.
If you've been following Star Citizen's development for any period of time, or any game's development for that matter, you probably already know how important the user interface is to any project. The way in which we interact with our universe is as essential as anything in that cosmos itself, and can sometimes become a bottleneck to the inclusion and enjoyment of features. But all that's changing with a powerful new initiative intended to make the design and creation of UI elements more capable, more flexible, and better enabling our designers to bring their visions to life more efficiently than ever before.
It's a very exciting time right now for the UI. For the past several months, we've been working on some new tech that we're calling building blocks internally, but really what it is a replacement for our current UI tools. Before, what we had was a very difficult to use system that uses Flash and Scaleform. And what we wanted to do for the developers internally was to basically make a tool and a system to make it much easier to actually get UIs into the game. Historically, it's been very difficult to actually author something, and the process has been very convoluted in terms of authoring an asset, not seeing it live update in the game, having to export, reload the editor every time you want to make a change. So now with the new tech, we have so many new features that we can employ, like fluid layout, being able to flexibly size a layout to a particular screen dimension so as to make it much easier for us to maintain, because we have a lot of different screen aspect ratios and screen dimensions that we need to manage in the game. We have some really cool stuff in our that we built for the UI tech, like a way to dynamically lay out elements in any configuration that a designer might want. So you can lay stuff out in columns, you can lay out stuff in rows, you can have them automatically shrink or automatically grow, so it's a very flexible tool. We also have some very unique functionality to our UI tech, one of which includes a post transform, which basically takes a rectangular element and transforms it radially, so you can actually easily create radial menus. And all the functionality that you would have in a regular linear rectangular element is then just, it's simply inherited into the radial menu. That's what we focus on, is just how do we make it easy and very intuitive for a designer to actually create what they want and get what they want out of the tool. What excites me the most about actually working on this is that it's very much the foundational system that everyone's going to use to build UI. As the UI artists, we still have a responsibility to define like the styles and the looks and the standardization of the UI, but to actually prototype something and prototype some gameplay loops, anyone can do that now. They don't have to be a specialist, they don't have to have a special program to be able to actually author a UI or implement a UI in the game. They can just go into our own internal tool, create it themselves, and easily hook up variables from the game to the UI and test stuff. We can actually see much more gameplay start to come alive and the universe starting to feel alive and dynamic.
So what did we learn this week? We learned that the Nautilus aims to bring new dynamics to defensive gameplay in the Star Citizen universe. That improvements to materials and sound effects are just some of the ways it's often the little things that can make the most difference. And that game dev isn't just building features and functions for you, but for our developers, so that they can in turn build faster features and functions for you. To our subscribers, our continuing thanks for making all videos like this possible. And to everyone in the Star Citizen community, keep an eye out for a new episode of Pillar Talk being released tomorrow and more information about the public roadmap. Until next week.
Thanks for watching. For the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42, you can subscribe to our channel, or you can check out some of the other shows, and you can also head to our website at www.robertspaceindustries.com. Thank you very much for watching.